It's Thursday night. It's 8 p.m. It's your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast, and we have so much to get into this week, folks. We have AEW Revolution. We have Farewell to Sting. We have a new set. We have new faces. Is it a new era? All that we're going to talk about going on with All Elite Wrestling. And on top of that, Hall of Famers are getting announced. The WWE Hall of Fame season is here, so we got to talk about that. And who knows what else, folks. Buckle in. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt. All I really want is that Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really need that Big Gold Belt.
Thanks for being here with us tonight, folks. We are glad you are along for the ride. I am Will here with Giant Crab, Jamal, the two-man power trip tonight.
That's right.
Representing Big Gold Belt here this week on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. The boys are busy, but the two of us are holding things down, and we got a lot to get into tonight. I think it's going to be a pretty busy episode, so we're glad you're here. Chime in the chat if you've been keeping up with what's going on in wrestling, because there is oh so much going on. And I say let's get right into it, because we had a busy week this week with AEW Revolution happening this past weekend, featuring Sting's retirement match with Darby Allin against the Young Bucks, in addition to a whole bunch of other stuff going on in there. And after we talk about that some, we're going to get into Dynamite last night, because a bit of a facelift happening on Dynamite. So there's a lot of moving pieces going on in AEW, so they are definitely going to be topic numero uno tonight as we get started. First things first, Giant Crab, how are you doing this week?
Oh, good. It's been an interesting time for AEW, so definitely going to have to get into that. And then, more importantly than all of that, baseball is around the corner. Thank God.
Spring is almost here.
Trade blossom season, you know?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Hell, we got to move those damn clocks ahead this weekend. That's not my most favorite night of the year, but it is what it is. But yeah, spring is on the way. So AEW Revolution this past Sunday night in where were they at? They're Greensboro. Greensboro, North Carolina, home of the infamous Sting and Ric Flair match at Clash of Champions 1. And we talked a lot last week about Sting's send-off, about farewell to Sting, as we called it. So here we are now, after it has all gone down, and we had a big talk last week about what should it open the show? Should it go on later? What should they do? The man's 65 years old, let him go to bed. And lo and behold, it main evented the show. It went on dead last. So I guess let's start with initial, thoughts on the Sting match, since that was like what drew people. That was the big draw on this show. So get in here. Well, thoughts on Sting's retirement match at Revolution?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It kind of went very typical of a Sting match. And as Sting when he first came in, he wrestled a more complete match, and then it kind of lessened until him just being set up for the next spot. And that's fine. I mean, he's 103. What else? What more do we need him to do? And the match went as expected. We did not expect the Young Bucks and Sting to put on a technically bad match. We knew that they were going to come up there and have some good spots to build a competent match, and it's exactly what they did. This was pretty much by the numbers what we were expecting, and we got, and I was generally satisfied with it. One thing I said last week is that it really didn't matter to me if Sting won or not. If he didn't, he's a valiant winner. The Bucks are heels. That's a good look for them. If he did win, he goes out as a champion. Okay, cool. So there was a lot. It was a very safe match in the sense that they had so many different ways to pivot after the match was over and where they would go from there. One of the questions last week that I asked was, well, should this even main event? Because realistically, the match is about Sting and his story ends, Sunday. And it did main event. So what reason do I have to watch Dynamite on Wednesday if I'm watching it for Sting and Darby Allin? That was an interesting question. And of course, we'll talk about Dynamite later. But as far as the match goes, yeah, it was actually pretty good. No complaints. Everybody got their work in. I like the little callback to WrestleMania. We're not sorry, we hate you. It was it was pretty damn good. But it's also, whether you like them or not, the Bucks are competent wrestlers. It's not like they got thrown up there with some, half-ass team that, couldn't wrestle out of a paper bag. Like, the Bucks can work, and we know that. The Sting match went well. Would it have been better as a cinematic match? Maybe, maybe not. But for what it was, I was okay with it.
Yeah, I think the number one takeaway I had from it was Sting more than held up his part of that match. It wasn't like he was out there going kind of easy or taking things kind of light. I mean, the man went through tables. He went through a pane of glass. He was making sure he got his big spots in. He got his big moments throughout that match. It was not just all about the Bucks creating all the movement and like Darby doing, tons of crazy stuff. All that stuff was absolutely in there. But
this was not the Ric Flair match.
No. Sting did not coast through this. He definitely did not fall asleep or anything like in the last Ric Flair match down in Memphis. Yes, he held up his end of things. That was like that one thing I was the most pleased with is that Sting got to go out looking like, okay, like how we were joking about it last week. People were talking about Sting in his New Jack era, doing his like deathmatch spots and all that. But hey, smoking mirrors. Hey, gets the job done. Like you said, the guy's like turning 65 in a couple weeks, and he absolutely held up his part of this. So I don't think he has anything to like, look back in that match and be like, I wasn't happy about this. Hell, his sons got to come out there with him and play a key role in that and have a bunch of spots with their dad, which I'm sure will be memories they'll have for the rest of their lives. So, and like you mentioned, they let him keep the titles. We were hoping that would kind of happen because it just felt like for the send-off, it just felt like the right move as opposed to having the Bucks win the tag titles. Because I think we said it best last week. It's the Young Bucks weren't going to gain anything by beating Sting and Darby. There was no real upside to that they wouldn't already have. So let Sting have his moment. The night's about Sting. Give him his moment. Have the titles given up afterwards for a tournament because we know Tony's going to be itching to put on a tournament. And sure enough, that's what we're doing. Here we are. But as far as that match itself, I thought it was good fun. It was exactly what it needed to be. There's definitely some folks that were a little up in the arms about the glass stuff, but I'm looking at that and I'm looking like I'm pretty sure that pain Sting went through was probably some sugar glass. And I imagine old Stinger was probably well protected on that. Darby obviously got to feel a bit more things with his whole deal, but I think as far as Darby goes, they made sure that there were medics there. They clearly had him laying there on the ground getting checked for quite a while after that, where he was just not on camera. Right. So there were obviously extensive precautions taken with everything in that match across the board.
I mean, like visually, it's arresting, but that's the point. So, that's what pushing the envelope looks like. So, and honestly, I hope that Darby can go back to that place where that made him what he is. Now, obviously, he doesn't have to do that anymore. Darby's definitely more accomplished as, we've seen him work a technically proficient match. The match of Full Gear versus Max Friedman, one of his better matches, and he didn't get thrown through anything. So does he need to get hit by a car in his next match? No. But do I want him to? Absolutely. Go through all the windshields. But as far as the match goes, it absolutely worked. The Sting match was a hell of a send-off. And for the faults of AEW, the one thing that they did right by Sting. They did right, his legacy. Obviously, the non-WWE stuff, notwithstanding. But, they encapsulated his legacy. They were able to tell, the story of his, story career and present the match. And it ended. It was a hell of a send-off. And, I don't know who the next person is that would get that big of a send-off from AEW. But this is one of the ones that they are going to have to top. And also, of course, tradition says, well, the retiree loses, leaves his boots in the ring, tradition. But you know what? Sting could have won. Why not see him go out as a winner, as a champion? And I don't mind that at all. It really worked well.
Is there anything else on Revolution you want to touch on?
Not a goddamn thing. That's a different problem.
It was definitely that was what people came for. People came for Sting's darn match. That was the thing. And yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. So onward to Dynamite, which we had heard rumors for a couple weeks that Dynamite was going to have a new look this week, new graphics, a new set, a new feel to it. And sure enough, I think about a week out, we started seeing there's a new logo that they've incorporated, got more of a different color scheme going on.
Yeah, the rainbows are back.
Yes, people are saying it looks kind of like NXT 2.0 as far as like the bright colors of it. But I mean, I don't know, bright colors.
Because WWE invented the rainbow pattern. Like, okay.
Yeah, it's like colors are colors. I'm not going to get like worked up over like the color palette.
Nope, Triple H invented colors in 2015.
But they brought back the tunnels on the stage. The tunnels are back, a little bit different of a configuration. And outside of that, I would say the other big piece going on is obviously there is a couple weeks deal here of like boom, boom, boom. We have major new faces showing up. We have Ospreay returning. Last night we had Okada show up. Next week they're in Boston with it heavily rumored Mercedes is going to show up. So it's like a kind of a little flurry here of names, new faces, fit makeover for the company. Sting's retired. So it kind of begs the question, is this a new era or a new chapter, maybe a kind of a turning of the page for Dynamite and AEW in general? Do you think there's a bit of a change happening here?
So aesthetically, yes. And instead of changing and trying to compete in the WWE space where a lot of the set, it's odd because one of the bigger gripes about AEW was that people love the wrestling, but the production wasn't great because WWE came out with LED everything, and they came out with the LED ring post and the video boards, for the ring apron and stuff like that. And WWE is always stepping up production, whether it's original sets for pay-per-views, the over-the-top sets for WrestleMania, or just little small things like this massive, 50-foot video wall that they put in for Raw and SmackDown now, with the doorway in the bottom. And AEW really hasn't done that. They've kind of recycled a lot of their sets for a lot of different things. And other than the heel and face tunnel, they're really, once they went away from that, everything kind of looked the same, and they lost their identity a little bit. And instead of doing that, they've kind of gone back to the thing that made them different, bringing back the colors, the multiple colors, and maybe not the chalk explosion, but just the multiple colors and the rings of the tunnels and stuff like that in a more upscaled modern way. And I like it. I like it. I think that this was the change that they needed to differentiate themselves from WWE while continuing to upgrade their presentation. Yeah, sure. They do have the video boards at the ring apron, and they have them at the opposite side of the ring from the hard cam. Well, sure. LEDs are not as expensive anymore. We're going to see a lot of that going forward. They moved the commentary table to ringside. Okay, that makes sense. It can create from some interesting storytelling moments as somebody crashes through the announce table. That's just a free table there that can be broken, if it's at ringside versus up on the stage. There is something to it, and I think that it's a much needed change as AEW rather started to look like the thing that they were competing against. So 100% okay with the change. I think that was the only thing that they really promoted, though, because there wasn't anything that I felt between Sunday and Tuesday night that made me want to watch on Wednesday.
There was very little out about what was going to happen. There was no tease of Okada, saying And any kind of like, oh, we're gonna have a debut. There was no big surprise, one of those things like they've done in the past.
Right. Which is fine because I don't mind a good surprise. But that's kind of a thing where it's just like, well, coming out of the pay-per-view, and the pay-per-view was whatever. Aesthetically, I thought it was interesting that they opened with a promo on Wednesday instead of opening with wrestling. Hope that's not a trend that they continue, because
it was a very Monday Night Raw thing to do. To have a
very Monday Night Raw thing to do,
and it also segued right into, and now because of this promo, we're gonna have a match.
Exactly, and then that's when they take their first break during the match, and it's like, okay, I don't like that at all. I would rather you give me a good 20-minute match before you got to take a break. Or instead of 15 minutes of promo, to set up an 8-minute match where you take a break halfway through. Oh no, I don't like that at all. I hope that was a one-off I hope that's a trend they don't continue. As far as bringing Okada in, so I know the name because I have to know the name, but I haven't really seen him work, and his name doesn't really resonate with me. Saying that Okada is in AEW is a big deal. I just don't know why it's a big deal. Don't get me wrong. I understand that he's a huge deal from New Japan, and him leaving the company, New Japan leaves a gaping hole in that organization. I don't watch New Japan, so that means nothing to me. I understand that him and Kenny have had some critically acclaimed matches. I don't like Kenny Omega. I haven't seen him. So I know that I'm speaking for me, and I know that a bunch of you are going to scoff and go, this asshole in the rabbit hat is talking crazy, because how do you not watch the best of the world? Well, I haven't. Sell me on it. And that's one of the things that commentary really didn't do. And maybe it is me out of the loop, because when he came out and the crowd popped, okay, cool. Why?
And he has been there before. Let's be clear on that.
We haven't seen him in a year, though. I mean, right. Forbidden Door was last June. There hasn't been hot nor hair since. And I think they did the New Japan show, Wrestle Kingdom, in January.
Right.
And because he faced Danielson there, but that was for New Japan. So if you weren't up at 3 a.m. or have a New Japan World subscription, you didn't see that either. So as far as AEW is concerned, if you're not heavily invested in the lore, and you just watch week to week, as casual fans do, he may not resonate with people. They need to build him up. They need a presentation that suggests that he is everything that they're paying him, which I hear is a substantial amount. But I don't know. It fell a little flat for me, and maybe that's my own ignorance showing. However, now that he's here, they're going to have to convince me that he is a big deal. And I'm going to be interested to watch that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'm definitely familiar with Okada and followed his 2010s run in New Japan. So, hell, I've even seen the guy live when he came over during when they were doing talent exchanges with ROH. So,
okay.
I'm familiar if I've seen the guy. Hell, I've got a picture with him, for God's sake.
Right.
The legend of Okada.
You said that was 2010s? So we're talking at least 10 years ago.
Yeah, and that's exactly what a point I'm going to get into here.
Okay.
I mean, the glory days of Okada and Tanahashi and Kenny Omega, I mean, we're all talking a pre-COVID world, mid-2010s, late 2010s, and all that. And since then, I've definitely not been following things as closely. And like as New Japan went through this last couple of years, and just going into COVID, that last year I was losing interest. COVID totally killed everything over there. And since then, it just hasn't been the same at all. But that's part of, I figure, why we ended up with him here now and all this. But it's like they definitely need to get over who he is to a larger audience. The hardcores know. The hardcores know everything. That's, that goes without saying. We know that. Okada, to those folks, Okada's a cop. Hell, to some folks, some of those folks are not happy he's here because they wanted him to stay in Japan and continue being the ace of New Japan.
Sure.
So it goes both ways. I think the big question is just, how does he figure in here? As you mentioned, they're rumored to be paying him a boatload of money. The rumor today was according to Tokyo Sports, Kazuchika Okada signed a 3-year deal with AEW for about 2 billion yen. Well, what does that transfer to? Here's the deal. That equates to about $13.5 million, roughly about $4.5 million per year is the rumor for Okada. So, hey, not a bad chunk of change. Great for Okada. If you're Okada, hey, get that money. I'm always going to like a wrestler getting paid. But for that kind of price tag, I'm like, where are you going to? Are you making him like your main event or something? Or like, is he going to be like the top darn dude? Because that's a lot of darn money to be shelling out. It also seems like they're going pretty hard with Will Ospreay on these last, between the pay-per-view and last night. So they're definitely going hard with some new faces and clearly not shy about opening their wallet to get these new faces. But the biggest thing I just walked away with the Okada thing was I was just like, in 2024, is Okada really worth that kind of money? Because I'm just thinking back a decade ago, he don't remind me of the guy I saw a decade ago anymore. So,
okay.
I don't know, in 2024.
So I just looked it up. I just looked it up.
Yes.
And 2.5 billion yen, according to xe.com, which is how I do my currency conversions, is $16.9 million.
Oh, even more.
Yeah. So that's as of right now, and it updates and refreshes as the markets do a thing. So if that is the case, was there ever a time in his career where he was worth a 3-year deal for $17 million? So $17 million, 3 years, we're talking for $3 and some change million a year. I don't know. I can't think of too many wrestlers that are worth that much money in the U.S. And also, more importantly, what exactly does he bring? Like in the U.S. Because so what? Let's say that all of Japan watches AEW now. That's not going to raise the U.S. ratings.
Right.
Let's say that all of Japan buys AEW merch, but their next show is in Boston, and Collision's in Columbus, Georgia, or something like that. So I'm not sure exactly on the American side what that translates to, unless he's the Shohei Ohtani of wrestling, where he's going to come in and revolutionize the game. I don't know where how he lives up to the check. Now, for $17 million, they would definitely get their money's worth, because AEW's dropped like 3 shirts today for Okada. But pushing merch on your off day doesn't make him a bigger name. So I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm not sure how they get to that point where his reputation precedes him to a wider audience, because obviously there are people who don't know him. There are people that just don't know him.
Yeah.
I hope that that's the case, and they do have another pay-per-view coming up. Dynasty, that was announced at Revolution. So Dynasty is April 21st in St. Louis at the University of St. Louis Arena at Chavez Center. Cool. It's the 21st. They have a little over 4 weeks. They have 5 weeks to convince me to spend $50 on Okada at a pay-per-view. And now, so that's really what it comes down to. Will they be able to pull that off? That's where their money is, because Okada's getting paid regardless. It is what it is.
I say for him, it's great. For him, it's so damn loose. Hell, he could do a Nakamura run here and just be like hanging out and like taking it easy, less wear and tear on the body. He's getting his money. So if I say for him, this is a wonderful deal, no problem there. The big question for me is just how, if you're AEW, do you recoup some of this or benefit from it in a way that justifies that huge price tag? But maybe part of it is just out. I don't know, with all the damn money that family has tied up between the Jaguars and Fulham and all this, well, maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. Maybe
to be fair, though,
he got this money to spend. Let's spend it. Who cares?
But to be fair, though, as a company, he's not spending his own purse. He's not paying Okada, via Cash App. This is AEW money that they're spending, and maybe the company may be in the red this year because for reasons, the video game, touring, scheduling, rosters, insurance, or whatever. But my thing is, and I just did the math because I suck at math, $5.6 million a year based on $17 million for 3 years. Where, if $5.5 million goes to one guy, and that guy isn't John Cena, Brock Lesnar, the literal Rock, then they're going to have to convince me that, and other casual fans, that he's on that level.
Here's a thought I heard brought up today. If Okada's getting this much, how much do you think Mercedes is getting? Assuming she shows up next week.
I think it's comparable, but I think it's less. I think it's comparable, but I think because if he's getting, let's just say 5. If he's getting 5, I think she's getting 3.5.
Because I think getting her to make the move, much like getting him to make the move from Japan, it was going to take an amount like this to get him to do it. It's like, because it's not like they didn't have offers elsewhere. So it's like, what does AEW have to offer that these other places don't? Well, maybe it's more zeros at the end of the check more than anything else.
Well, I think it's that, but I also think it's a schedule because maybe they offer Mercedes 5 and she says, okay, we can do 5. And then they say, well, we need to work 300 days a year in WWE. Yeah. Okay, well, no, we're not going to do that. But if AEW can give her 3, she can do 3 and then still make Disney money with her Disney shows, or still make outside things, sell her own merch, create her own anything, so she's a boss. Maybe she actually wants to grow businesses, create a wrestling, whatever she wants to do. Mercedes Moné could bake pies for all I care, but in AEW, that flexible schedule allows her to do that. So
good point.
So maybe, and that's also a thing too. AEW has a really light schedule, 5 hours of TV a week, and that's it. And even if you add a pay-per-view a month, they're still only adding 7 shows because they do 4 a year, and they may have an occasional, like Forbidden Door or something like that. So it's not necessarily. It may be worth the price cut where she may not get, but in the incentives may be better. But then again, it could be also later. Maybe she's getting 2, but she's getting a bigger percentage of her merch from Pro Wrestling Tees or Shop AEW or whatever. Maybe she's getting a bigger cut from the name, image, and likeness in the AEW video game, which they would be stupid not to add them in an upcoming DLC. How do you not add Mercedes and Okada in the AEW game?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's a million different ways to skin a cat, but still, it's still to the point of like, we are talking the most money up there, with the most money being doled out to a single talent in AEW. And when you think of the top in AEW, and obviously we're not quoting actual paychecks, but you got to think that Jericho, the Bucks, Kenny, possibly Adam Page,
Mox.
I forget that he exists.
The people who've been there since the jump got to be getting like big chunks.
They've got to be getting a pretty damn good chunk, a pretty damn good chunk of change. Max Friedman. I think that they've got to be in the top tax bracket for AEW. And then some of the other guys that have been there a minute that are prominent features on TV has got to be right under them. But I just can't imagine Mercedes and Okada superseding all of them. Mm-hmm. And, let me ask you this then. Who do you think makes the bigger impact after the Dynasty pay-per-view? Mercedes, assuming that she shows up on Wednesday, or Okada? Like, who do you like? Go ahead.
It's tricky. Because I would think there'll be much more interest in Mercedes in the U.S. market since she's a known commodity. She's been away for a bit, hasn't been seen for a while. If they get the word out that she is here now, I think she has definitely the potential to make a very big splash very quickly.
Right.
That said, we've seen how these things go there, and just there's no guarantees. And I think part of the question is like just how they're who are they going to pair her with? You know, like last night it was like oh, they're heating up Rio. Maybe they're going to do something with Rio. And of course, a lot of people are thinking, well, it's got to be Tony Storm. Tony Storm's not the title, but I don't know. Neither one of those is terribly compelling to me right out of the gate. But seeing her in a different environment, since we've only ever seen her, in New Japan,
right,
for her little run there, and her little appearances in Star.
Well, she got injured.
Right. I mean, that's right. Just as she got going, she got hurt. So her in a different environment is still a very new thing, and especially something like this that'll be much more high profile on national TV in the U.S. So it's hard to say. My gut feeling would be Mercedes over Okada in that respect. What's your thought?
So here's the thing, and this is we've seen Swerve, and Swerve is a mogul. He leads Mogul Industries with Prince Nana. Okay, cool. And then we see Big Money Matt. That was a thing for a little while. And then, of course, the Elite are Elite EVPs. And then we have another boss in Mercedes. Does it feel like more of the same gimmick where we just have, just rich, influential people just doing rich guy things and wrestling on the side? I really hope their character is more developed than that, and whatever that tends to be. But we get it. Everybody seems to be a boss nowadays, where they're just throwing around money. I hope it's more than that. As far as what that presentation looks like, I hope it's different. There's a ton more matchups for Mercedes. Obviously we need to see how she looks back coming from an injury. We haven't seen her in a year, so that will be the biggest test. But comparing the two directly between Okada and Mercedes, the AEW women's division versus the very crowded top of the card in the Elite and that whole situation on the men's side. It's really not a matter of how they'll fit in. It's really when. When does Okada go on a title run? Does he? Or is he just there in like a Bryan Danielson capacity of just killer dream matches until he retires? Is he there? Does he have the Christian path where Christian's just there to help? But obviously he has a run. He's TNT champion, but Christian isn't there to just take over. He has a role. He fills it.
Right.
Same thing with Mercedes. Is she there to be more assertive in the women's division? Or is she there as the veteran that everybody wants to be, and just kind of fills that role? So it'll be interesting to see how they're both presented long-term over the next, 3-6 months, I guess. But head to head, I gotta think that Mercedes is just kind of, her fans are really waiting for this to be it. This is the run. This is the run that we thought we were going to get in Japan. And I don't have to stay up for, in the middle of the night for. I think that, and hopefully this is it. Hopefully Mercedes can come through in a meaningful way for the women's division, because they absolutely could use the push. The only thing that scares me, the only thing that makes me, a bit hesitant to fully embrace it is the fact that it's still the women's division. And if they're not getting, if they don't step up their presentation as a whole, more time, more storylines, more characters involved, then it doesn't matter who you put out there.
I think we've said it before on this darn show since these rumors have started of her going there.
Right.
If it ain't happening for her, I don't see it ever happen. This is it. This is the moment of you've had the people asking for this forever. Now you got a big new name showing up that obviously we're sure is not coming cheap. If you're not going to do it now, I really can't see what would ever get him to do it. So
and
now
we've said this before too. They've had other big names that we thought were going to be big names. Saraya, Ruby Soho, Athena, Toni Storm. But it took a while for Toni Storm to work out and be the person that she is now. Ruby Soho still finding her way. Saraya's meh. Athena's in Ring of Honor, doing the best work of her career, but it's behind the paywall of honor, which is a damn shame. So it is kind of like, we don't know where we're going to get, and the history is not on their side. So I think that'd be the biggest thing is that, and we've said this before too, and of course this Wednesday will be the test. We need a CM Punk Sting-like presence to come through with Mercedes. Anything shorter than that, then go home. Pack it up. It's not working.
There you go. We will see this Wednesday in Boston as they are promoting it.
Yeah.
As
big business.
Big business. The new era possibly continues. We will see. Developing a story that we'll be keeping track of here on your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast. Folks, we went long in the first half, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to have our quick commercial break. When we come back, Giant Crab will tell us what's going on the indies, and then after that, it's time to take a look at the WWE Hall of Fame, because we got our first 2 announced people. Stuff is starting to happen. All that and so much more, folks. Stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast is back right after this.
If you're looking to expand your podcast reach, your website reach, as well as your social media branding, visit BigGoldBelt.com for sponsorship and advertising opportunities. Big Gold Belt Media is the golden standard for all of your media needs. We offer pre-roll and mid-roll ad spots, on-air host reads done by yours truly, Damian G, on audio as well as video platforms. For inquiries, please email biggoldbeltgroup@gmail.com for more information. Again, that's biggoldbeltgroup@gmail.com for your inquiries for your business. Big Gold Belt Media, wrestling, movie, comics, and more. The golden standard.
Welcome back, folks. Thanks for being with us here tonight on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. When we come back from halftime, we like to check out what's going on in the indie scene. So here's Giant Crab with this week's Big Gold Belt Indie Wrestling Spotlight.
Yep, and this week we're going up to Toronto, Ontario, Canada for Demand Lucha. I like these guys. They have a hell of a show coming up in 2 weeks. It's Demand Lucha in Toronto, Thursday, March 21st. It's called Lucha Palooza, which is, kind of a great name for a show. But Lucha Palooza, the hype up party starts at 7. Lucha time is at 8. It's at Parkdale Hall on the west side of Toronto. That's 1605 Queen Street West, on the west side, near Hyde Park. If you hit Hyde Park, you're gone too far. But it's right off the streetcar, right next to the Gardner, Parkdale Hall on the west side of Toronto for Lucha Palooza. One of the matches that I'm very excited about is Jack Cartwheel versus Joey Janela. It's a damn shame that Jack Cartwheel isn't on TV more. And Joey Janela has always been a solid worker, other issues notwithstanding, but that's for the Lucha Premier Championship. That's going to be awesome. Death Fighter Akira versus the Extreme Luchador Arrow Boy, which should be a fun match. And Jimmy Lloyd versus Kevin Blackwood is going to be a fucking barn burner. I can't wait for Demand Lucha Palooza. That is March 21st. Doors at 7. Bell goes at 8. LuchaMarket.com to get your tickets. You could, or Demand Lucha on the Twitter and other social media. But yes, Demand Lucha, Toronto. LuchaMarket.com for your tickets. March 21st, Parkdale Hall on the west side of Toronto. Got to get there, see it. Jack Cartwheel in person. It's always a good time. Lucha Palooza in 3 weeks. And that's your Indie Spotlight for this week.
There we go. Lots of stuff happening on the indies. And I'm thinking in a couple of weeks, we'll probably start hearing about what's going to be happening over WrestleMania weekend in Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
Because, of course, there will be a ton of indie events.
And those shows are selling out. So if you are interested in going to Philly for any show, do it now.
Yeah. Tickets are moving, and being it's on the East Coast, it's in the Northeast. There is going to be just between there and with Jersey right by there. There's a lot of events spread out over the area.
Supercard is going to be in Philly this year. Obviously the big shows, WrestleCon and stuff like that. Then, of course, there's the WWE shows. So a lot of stuff that's happening. Also about that Toronto show for Demand Lucha, AEW is actually the night before in Toronto. So they're doing Dynamite and Rampage, from Toronto. And then, of course, the Thursday after that, the following night, Demand Lucha, Parkdale Hall in Toronto. So if you're up that way, Buffalo, Hamilton, Niagara, Oshawa, get down to Toronto. It's going to be a couple good days of wrestling.
There we go. So let's switch gears here since we were AEW heavy in the first half. We have yet to talk about the WWE Hall of Fame because there hadn't been any news about it. until this week. And now suddenly started the week with an announcement. I kind of figured out they'll kind of spread it out, but no, they came with a 1-2 punch, and a day or two later, we got our second announcement. So we have our first two announcements for the WWE Hall of Fame. They led with the announcement that Paul Heyman will be going in this year, which I guess in Philadelphia, if there was any place you were going to do it, the home of ECW absolutely makes sense as the place to induct Paul Heyman. And of course, on top of that, with everything going on with Roman Reigns that weekend, it might be the pinnacle of his run as champion. So the wise man going in this weekend in conjunction with WrestleMania 40, it feels kind of like, where else would you do it? So there you go. Paul Heyman, our first announcement. The second announcement, a bit more spicy and a bit more exciting, in my opinion, and coming out of nowhere right here. But Bull Nakano is going in the WWE Hall of Fame. Of course, in the mid-90s, she had a great run there going against Alundra Blaze, also known as Medusa at the time. But over the WWF Women's Championship, it wasn't a long run, but for its time, they were having women's matches in the States that people had just never seen the likes of in the mid-90s there. So Bull Nakano going in the WWE Hall of Fame, I'm very excited about. Exciting moves. And I guess probably there's a detail to get into here. This would be the first WWE Hall of Fame inductions now with the old man not involved. This is all Triple H and the new regime. So definitely a bit of a switch up here. I think, especially with announcing Bull second. Usually someone like that, I think, would be a little bit further down, like your fourth or fifth, oh, by the way, we're throwing like a Great Muta last year, I think was the last one announced. And this year it's like, no, Bull Nakano, number 2. Get her out of here. So I'm excited for this one. This is my first time in a while I've kind of gotten like excited about the WWE Hall of Fame.
Yeah, no, it makes you wonder if this is the original plan or if things changed as the backstage, behind the scenes group changed. So either way, still 2 good picks. Heyman's kind of like a no-brainer in Philadelphia. Bull Nakano, definitely a pleasant surprise. Both worthy. Now, of course, the question is, who inducts them both?
Good question. You would think Bull Nakano, the obvious answer is Medusa, since that's who she was tied to in WWE. But I could also see maybe them wanting to do one of the current women.
I could see Asuka, doing it.
They're Asuka, or like maybe they have like maybe a kind of a group thing with like Asuka, Io, and Kairi kind of all together as a group. Maybe I'm sure they'll probably be involved in some way in it, but it could also easily be tied into one of the current ladies. So I would think some combination of that. Heyman, that's a trickier one. Because there's so much. I should not say so much. So many people he is tied to. I don't see Roman Reigns inducting him before WrestleMania. I can't see that. But God, I'm sitting here and I'm like, there's a lot of names coming to mind because you have the ECW tie-in being there in Philly. I'm sure that will be a big part of the induction. I don't know. Maybe you got to do like almost a panel of people from different parts of his career. And like,
so there's that. And I think that also it would be interesting to see it done with Tommy Dreamer, for example, Brock Lesnar, for example, and maybe Cody Rhodes, for example. It would, or CM Punk, for example. It would be interesting to see prominent people in his life that he was able to do it. But then again, it's interesting. Obviously, ECW wasn't around for a long time, but it definitely made a lasting impression. So I wonder if any of those guys that never really had an association with WWE comes around. Maybe Joey Styles inducts him into the Hall of Fame. They'll probably just play it safe because again, this is a WWE event. So they'll probably I can see Tommy Dreamer doing it. I can see CM Punk doing it. I can see
Punk's not going to be wrestling that weekend. It's an easy thing to get him involved in over WrestleMania weekend that doesn't involve any physicality.
Yeah, and I can see. I would like to say that Lesnar would do it. It would be interesting to hear Lesnar give a speech, but also I don't think that Lesnar and WWE are on speaking terms. So
the timing right now would be very suspect.
Yeah, the timing probably not going to happen.
Considering they dropped a video game this week and he has been omitted from it, or not so much scrubbed, but he is unplayable in the new video game WWE 2K24.
Oh.
So clearly their moves have been made very quickly to be like, oh, we're going to shadow that character. So you can't use him at the moment.
So the creator wrestler section is going to go wild, but realistically, that's not. So yeah, it would be interesting to have that happen. Obviously, I would love for somebody from ECW to induct him. I would love for it to be, Just Incredible or Lance Storm or somebody like that, or probably Tommy Dreamer. Joey Styles makes a lot of sense. Rob Van Dam.
Dudley. I could see the Dudleys.
Yeah. Or all of them, but obviously his career is more than ECW. What it would be interesting if Stephanie McMahon were to induct him, because they worked hand in hand in the SmackDown writers' room for years. And obviously that Stephanie McMahon is a name that we haven't heard from in quite some time. So just thinking out loud, it would be interesting to have that happen, but I think the safest bet would probably be CM Punk or somebody, or Tommy Dreamer.
Yeah, that's probably where we're headed, I would think.
Yeah.
Something like that. There's got to be an ECW tie-in because of Philly. There'll absolutely be an ECW presence.
Yeah.
So now that leaves the question. We got our first two names. We know there's things being done a little bit differently since there's different people in charge now. Who else maybe you think is on their radar? I think one that seems pretty obvious. I'd be shocked if it didn't happen. I would think Bray Wyatt's got to be going in, given his passing. That would seem just like an obvious pick, unless they, for some reason, think it's too soon and want to wait a year. But
I don't know what they would want to wait for.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking is probably happening. But only fact would be unless you want to do him as like the main person. As opposed to if Heyman's the main person in Philly, and just do you think Bray's big enough especially due to the nature of his passing, that you want to make him like the main event of the thing?
Yeah, I guess if they're, because everything has to be booked, you're having like a so I'm looking at 2021 because I'm looking at each year.
Yeah,
Kane, Molly Holly, Bischoff, the Great Khali, Rob Van Dam, and then older legacy guys and celebrity guys.
Yeah.
I would say that Bischoff is a bigger name than Kane. Maybe not Rob Van Dam, but it's Bischoff. But then Kane is the headliner. Okay, fine. You have JBL, British Bulldog, Liger, the NWO, and the Bella Twins. Well, the NWO is the headliner. Okay, cool, but Liger is a huge deal. So I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but having Bray and Heyman in the same class, I could see Heyman. I could see Bray being the headliner.
Mm-hmm.
But it is Philly, and for all the reasons that we just talked about, it does seem to be Heyman's Hall of Fame class to lead as well. But that's also a thing too. It's a different thing for an individual, whether you're a manager or a producer or a writer or some non-wrestling talent, to be in there versus an actual wrestler. So maybe the difference between the two. Maybe
another thing to consider. We know Heyman can talk.
Sure,
so he's gonna have no problem doing a acceptance speech of some sort and telling some stories. I'm sure, especially in Philadelphia.
Sure. So there's absolutely that, but then again, Bo Dallas is obviously going to be the one to induct Bray. So that's not, so that's not a problem either. So yeah, I think I could see both happening. I don't know why they would wait. Where's 41? Los Angeles?
They haven't said officially yet where 41's going to be. I would think that announcement is coming. If we don't get it before Mania, I'm sure we're getting it at Mania.
Sure. But if 41, no matter where 41 is, we would have this conversation next year,
right?
About who would be a person. I don't know. I think they can absolutely do it. I think that Heyman's a big enough name I think that Bray Wyatt is a big enough name. You can flip a coin of who is the headliner, but I think I think Bray goes in this year. I would be surprised if he didn't.
Yeah, that's my gut feeling is due to the nature of his passing and the timing. It's like I would imagine they do it this year. Maybe given the time issues. Do you think maybe they just do those 3? Do you think they add any more? Kind of have Heyman and like Bray's things be kind of extra long. Just allow a lot of time for those 2. Just because.
Well, they usually do the Warrior Award around that time also.
Oh yeah. There's that.
So that's a segment, and also the event's 2 hours.
Yeah, they do it after SmackDown now. It's no longer a separate thing. So it's a bit more streamlined than it used to be.
Yeah. So the event is a pretty lengthy event.
Yeah.
As far as it being a show. Now again, there are in Philadelphia. And there really isn't a lot of ECW representation in the WWE Hall of Fame. And obviously, if you don't know, ECW was bought by WWE way back when. So, other than Heyman, is there anybody else from the ECW side of things that may sneak in there? Because I think that there are a lot of names in the WWE Hall of Fame where you go, maybe. But there are a lot more people from the ECW side of things that were really impactful. But, for example, Taz should be in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, he's not.
Right.
But
not happening right now.
Not going to happen right now. But that would be something that would be, he should be in there. If the Dudley Boys aren't, I'm surprised. They should be in there.
Think they are.
I think they are. I would be surprised if they weren't, for example. But then, so there's a lot of people. Just Incredible should be in there. If Tommy Dreamer isn't in there, he should be. New Jack should be. He won't, but he should be. Joey Styles absolutely should be. He is the voice of ECW. It would be what's his name? The Impact players, honestly.
Dudleys are in.
Okay,
Dudleys went in 2018. Okay. I remember them going in there. So yes, they are in.
Shane Douglas absolutely should be there. But these are major players for ECW.
A name that just came to my mind that I do know has something coming. Sandman has a Mattel figure about to come out in the coming months. So clearly he's under a Legends deal because he has merch coming.
Oh wow.
Maybe Sandman.
Okay. That would be
as far as a big ECW name, and definitely someone that's in play that they're currently doing business with.
Is Brian Pillman in the Hall of Fame?
I'm pretty darn sure. Let me check. I'm almost positive he has to be. If he went in, it's got to be an older one. I'm going up the page here on Wikipedia. I'm almost positive he is. I'd be shocked if he wasn't. They put out a DVD on him.
He's one of those guys that people know, even though he doesn't necessarily have the resume, to back it up.
And the fact that I'm looking.
That's what I'm saying. The fact that it's taking you this long.
Yeah. Being on the Wikipedia, I'm looking at Brian Pillman.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, while you're looking it up, I just say that, like, now that his son is in NXT, that would be an interesting thing. And of course, maybe Steve Austin can induct him. But yeah, I don't. If Pillman's not in the Hall of Fame, he absolutely could be.
He is in. I figured he had to be, and he is in.
Okay, good. When did that happen?
That's what I was just going to look up right now. It says that it came up right away. Was inducted in the W Hall of Fame? When was he put in?
Really? But so long and short of it is that there are still some names that are in the WWE Hall of Fame, and
this thing is wrong. Hold up now. Now I'm second guessing myself. The first result that came up said he was, and I want to say he is, but
I don't see him listed as a Hall of Fame member.
Maybe I gave some wrong information.
But either way,
his first result that came up on Google isn't right. Right.
Yeah. So a lot of the on the search engine that I use say that Pillman would be one of the surprises to be in the Hall of Fame, assuming that he's not there. But whether he is or he isn't, we're at the point where we're thinking of those names of guys that, based on merit, should be there. I think that guys like D'Lo Brown, I think absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame because he's one of those guys that, there for a long time, several-time champion, sure, but just your workhorse journeyman that really, 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 was a mainstay for WWE in the 90s. Loved his work, absolutely should be there. But I can't think of too many people that aren't there. Actually, you know what? Does Ted Turner get in?
Well, if the old man was involved, it sure as hell wouldn't happen.
Right.
My God.
Right.
As far as impact on the business and key figure,
he's right there with Vince
in that respect.
And that's the thing. If obviously Vince is in, obviously his father's in, Heyman's going in, Ted Turner should be right behind him. Maybe not this year, but Ted Turner should be right behind him as far as impact in the business as it relates to wrestling in North America. If Inoki's in, Ted Turner should be in.
Yeah, Inoki's in.
Yeah, that definitely happened. So
as far as big names that had huge roles in wrestling,
right.
They don't come much bigger.
Yeah, Heyman, Bischoff, Inoki, McMahon's, and not Ted Turner. Yeah, Ted Turner absolutely gets in. If not now, then soon. If not now, then soon. So, before we get out of here, because we're creeping up on that time, and for the record, let me say that I have not seen where Brian Pillman has been inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I've done a bunch of different searches, and it looks like he's not, which I'm just shocked because they've done a bunch of stuff with him. So
So let me just say that if I'm wrong, correct me in the comments. Reach us at Big Gold Belt on social media, on all the social medias, and tell me I'm wrong. But one of the things I looked at really, really quickly is I peeked at Cameo, and Cameo is like a video messaging service where you could pay your favorite stars to leave you a personalized message. So I'm just going to give a name, and you're just going to tell me over or under. What do you think their charging rate is, over or under? And I'm going to go with Liv Morgan.
Oh, okay.
Is she over or under $200?
I'm going to say over.
And you would be correct. Liv Morgan is charging $350.
She would be inundated with folks at under $200. As popular as she is right now, she'd be doing a lot of cameos. I'm sure her price had to go up.
50. Ryback, over under 175.
That's a tough one because I could see him overvaluing himself extensively. 175 for Ryback. I am going to say under.
Ryback's charging $250.
Oh my God. I was gonna say 150 was gonna be my under on guess there, but like I said, he's someone I'm sure in his head is like, I'm absolutely worth that kind of money. I'm the Ryback. Oh my God.
Exactly. He is the Ryback. But if you got a cameo from Ryback, let us know how that went.
Can only imagine.
Nikita Lyons.
Ooh.
Over under $300.
300's the over under. Ooh, that's a tricky one. I am going to say over, but I don't think it's much over. I think it's very close to that dollar amount.
She is under $300 at $250.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Aaliyah from WWE, going by her real name, Noof Al Aribi. Is she over or under $250?
I'm going to go with under, being she's no longer with the company.
That would be correct because she's charging $200.
Aha.
And the last one for right now is Matt Riddle.
Oh.
Is Matt Riddle over or under $65?
65. Well, we're going with a low amount here. Riddle. course, he's not with the company. He's doing the indies. He's trying to make money any darn way he can.
Sure.
I'm going to say he's got to be more than 65. That just seems shockingly low.
Well, you would be correct because that would be shockingly low. He's charging 150.
Okay, that sounds about what I would expect. I was like, he's got to be doing more than that, doing autograph signings and stuff. So Cameo can't be that damn cheap. Matt Riddle.
Yeah. So there are a lot of people on Cameo, a lot of people at a lot of different prices that I thought were pretty interesting. You could say that, like, why is Tatanka charging $100? But then again, why is Scott Steiner only charging $100? So they're all on Cameo. You can definitely you know what, buy one for a friend. It's interesting to see how many people are on Cameo, doing that bit of business too, especially since WWE tried to put the clamp down on that. But not exactly high-low Cameo, but I was interested to see how many people still dabbling into it.
Yeah, it's been a bit since we checked in on Cameo, so we may have to bring back high-low Cameo when we have these couple extra minutes at the end of the show to fill out as a fun little game here on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. Folks, we glad you tuned in. Another fine Thursday night here. We had an action-packed hour with a lot to talk about with all this drama in AEW and the WWE Hall of Fame. We will be back next week, Thursday night, 8 p.m. As always, you can check out the show, biggoldbelt.com/live is always there for you. Of course, streaming on Twitch, YouTube, X, all kinds of social media platforms. The stream also goes out on there. The next day, the podcast version drops on Friday morning, but Thursday nights, 8 p.m. is where to catch it live. As always, Big Gold Belt Media, wrestling, movies, comics, and more. In the meantime, you can check out the website, biggoldbelt.com, and of course, at Big Gold Belt across the board on all your social media platforms. Keep in touch with us and all the stuff that's going on in the entertainment world. Thanks for being here, folks. We will see you next week. Until then, check out some wrestling, stay on the road to WrestleMania, and stay out of trouble. We'll talk to you then.